I talk to 400 plus dance studio owners every single year, and all of them are coming to me for help with their marketing. And yet, a huge percentage of them walk away from that call saying, I just can't afford to invest in marketing my dance studio right now. These are studio owners that are dealing with low enrollment, inconsistent cash flow, and sometimes fear from having worked with other marketing agencies that didn't do right by them. And so after our call, they walk away saying, maybe later. But later usually means when they come back to me, and they will come back to me, they are in far worse shape. They have fewer students, less cash in the bank, tighter margins, and more competition. Welcome back to Dance Studio Advertising. I'm Bryce Conlon. Happy Monday. So here's the sort of false belief, or at least the pervading thinking, is these studio owners show up to this call to explore, can I work with marketing? How do I get marketing? Now, let's just back up. You already know that you need this in your business. If you are not actively telling people about your studio, who you are, where you are, and why they should care, then your business is not going to grow. And we did an episode a few weeks ago about why it is that the studios with great technique are the ones that grow the slowest. And it's because they're focused on the great technique. They're not focused on growing the business and letting people know how great the technique or the studio or the culture is. And so there is this mindset that I encounter pretty consistently with studio owners. And the thinking goes, I'll invest once I have more students. But that's a lot like saying, like, I'll go to the gym once I'm in shape. It doesn't work that way. If you want to grow your business, something has to change. And the things that you've been doing to this point haven't gotten you to where you want to go. So why are you still continuing to do the things that aren't taking you where you want to go? The studios that grow, scary as it sounds, are the ones that invest before it feels safe. Now, I want to just dispel one thing right away, and it's that marketing is not a cost in your business. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many people show up and say, I can't afford it. Now, I'll tell you what I can't afford. I can't afford a Lamborghini supercar. I can't afford a 26 room, 15,000 square foot house. I can't afford to not market my business because it's not a cost. It is a lever that once you pull it, it allows you to bring cash into your business. It allows you to find new customers and bring them through the front door. And so if you use this lever and you put it into place, it will bring customers through your front door, and your marketing will put money in your pocket. So let's get into the I can't afford it fallacy. And that's exactly what it is. So number one, this is rooted in fear. It's a scarcity mindset. It's if I spend money on that, then I won't have money for this. And the truth is, in the short term, yeah, that's probably true. But it's like anything. When you buy a house and you invest in real estate, if you buy stocks, not necessarily recommended right now, then what you will find is that that cash leaves your hand today, but comes back to you in multiples tomorrow. And so the reason that we invest in generally the stock market or in real estate or in anything else is because there's a promise. If I put in $1 today, I'll get $2 tomorrow. And marketing works the same way. If you put cash today, you're right. You can't spend that on anything else because you're spending it on growth. But tomorrow it will bring back a return. And that's the real ROI in marketing is time. If you wait today and you do the same thing that you've been doing, you're likely going to be in the same position, if not a worse position down the line. But let's talk about the real return on waiting on pulling the trigger, because I get it. It's scary and I don't have the cash, or I need to spend that cash, or I need to pay my own bills, and I get it. But what's the cost, the real cost of not diving right in now? Well, there's a handful of things. One is declining enrollment. If you are already jumping on a call with me because you are losing students, then if you wait longer, you will only lose more students instead of gaining more and putting more into your pocket. There's a loss of momentum. what we tend to see is as studios atrophy, which they'll do naturally, it starts to take an emotional toll. You can feel it in the building. You can feel it with the staff, where it's like this, the energy's not there, the buzz isn't there, the vibe isn't there. It feels a little like a ghost town. Parents stop hanging out in the lobby because it's awkward. It's just them and someone sitting at the front desk. Teachers leave because it's hard teaching a class with two dancers in it, and they want a full room. It's more fun. And that declining momentum only compounds the further loss of students. And then, and this is the secret, sneaky, invisible one that studio owners have lost sight of since the pandemic. The pandemic put almost 40,000 kids' rec businesses under. That includes dance studios, but it's also karate and cheer and gymnastics and arts programs, music, and all kinds of things went out of business. So after the pandemic, for the studios that survived, the ones that stayed in business, there was this massive uptake in parents looking to get their kids out of the house and into some sort of kids programming. Well, that created this artificial bubble, a feeling of safety. And you're like, wow, this is great. My business is growing again. Fantastic. But it was in fact short-lived and artificial. It wasn't real demand, because now, a few years after the pandemic, all of those kids' businesses are coming back. Sometimes they're reopening. Sometimes it's just somebody new who decides they want to open a cheer studio in your town. And all of those things are taking kids away from dance, whether that's people who are currently dancing with you and they're looking to try something else, which I know is a constant refrain in studios that makes studio owners crazy, or they don't even know about you. And so they're going to the thing that they do know about because you're being out marketed. And this happens consistently. I constantly am jumping on calls with studio owners who come up on my calendar. I'm like, wait, I know that name. I feel like I know that person. And I'll go and I'll look and I'll pull up my notes. And sure enough, we talked in 2023. And in 2023, they had 146 dancers, and they were like, I need to grow. And we talked through it, and they're like, you know what? I'm just going to wait. I'm going to do it on my own. I just joined DSOA, so now I don't need marketing because they're going to solve all my problems, or whatever the excuse is. Like, they have their reasons for not pulling the trigger. And it's not my job to push. It's your business. And so I send them on their merry way, and then they come back. And this just happened to me yesterday. I talked to a studio owner that I talked to in 2022. And her business has grown precisely zero in the last 3 years. In fact, it has diminished because she has lost kids that have naturally atrophied, and a new studio opened on the same street in her tiny little town. This is what I'm talking about. If that studio owner had taken action 3 years ago, it's entirely possible that there wouldn't have been space for that other studio to open, or it wouldn't have mattered because she would have been so far ahead of her goal and where she wanted to be that she wouldn't have even felt it. So money is coming into your business, right? And so I just want to do like a reality check here. Where are you spending it? Are you spending it on the right things in your business? Now, it is so easy when you run a business to let cash go out the door without even realizing it. It's like water through the hands. And I'm a small business owner. I know we experience this too, where we'll look at the end of the month and go, what the heck, what did we spend all that on? And it's all kinds of things. It just goes. Swag. Studio owners love swag. I get it. It's cool to see your thing branded. It's awesome when one of your, kids wears it out in public and you happen to run into them in the grocery store and they're repping your brand. I get it. Honestly, you have to ask yourself, is that really a good use of money? Or is that an ego play? And I'm not here to judge you. Ask yourself. Like, I'm wearing a DMM hat right now. I get it. I love swag. It's super cool. But is it helping you grow your business? This hat does not help me grow my business. I just wear it because I like it, because I feel important, honestly, when I wear it. When I see my team wearing it, I feel like, wow, we're building something super cool. Does it grow the business? No. And so I know studio owners are spending money on swag. Conferences. There is a huge conference culture in the dance world. And I get it, right? And I'm not knocking conferences. We go to the conferences. We exhibit at the conferences. We pay money, good money, to be there with you at those conferences. I get it. Are they working for you? A lot of studio owners show up to these conferences. They sit there for 3 days. They take a notebook full of notes and they say to themselves, oh, this is what I'm going to do when I get back to my studio. But then you get to the end of the week and you're exhausted. So you go home and you recoup for 2 days, or in some cases you don't recoup at all because you just dive right back in because the conference ends on a Sunday morning and you fly back and you're back in it on Monday. You lose sight of it. You don't actually do anything with those investments, with the knowledge. And so is that cash? Is that a real investment in your business, or does it just feel like an investment in your business? I've heard people who renovate their studio because they feel like it got stale and they need a new look. Maybe that's a good use of money, but is it really? And I'm not going to decide that for you. You need to decide that for you. But these are not things, regardless, that bring in students. And so if you are in business to grow your business, you want to stay in business, you need a consistent stream of new students walking through the front door. If you're spending your money on other things that aren't helping you to do that, then you have missed priority number one. And it doesn't matter how much cool swag you have if you're going out of business. And it doesn't matter how many conferences you've been through or how many notebooks full of things you have if it's not helping you put new students through your front door. Sorry, I'm on a soapbox. I'm passionate about this. I want to see you succeed. Look at every dollar that's going out and ask the question, is it working for me? Is it bringing in new students? And if the answer is no, you may consider reallocating that to something that can. Because I've found that most studio owners actually can afford marketing. They're just spending their money on something else. Because I know far too many studios who spend zero money on marketing and $5,000 on t-shirts, sweatshirts, swag, things that nobody actually asked for. All right, so maybe you're thinking like, okay, Bryce, I get what you're saying, but that still feels scary. Yeah, I'm not saying that it's not going to feel scary. I'm just going to say that the studios that bet on themselves, that invest in themselves as the number one thing, are the ones that tend to win. So right now, if you go and buy a stock, it might go up. It's probably going to go down. That's just where we're at right now. And you have zero control over any of it. However, if you invest in yourself and you invest in one new lead walking through your front door, now you're betting on you because you have the ability to influence whether or not that one lead turns into a return customer. You actually have influence in that. And so if you're going to invest in anything, invest in you. Monet, and you've heard her story, and you can go back through episodes and hear it again. She ended up, like, she was near shut down. She had some things going on in her personal life. Finances were extremely tough. She quit paying herself. She told her business manager, don't pay me. We're going to pay these guys for the next 2 months. And if it's crap, if it doesn't work, then we're going to fire them and we're going to put it back. I'm going to pay myself again. And she did. She went without. Now, we didn't know this at the time. She went without, but she's crushed it. She went from like barely being able to keep her doors open to minting money. She paid off a $50,000 construction loan. She's expanding to a second location. She was not in a place. She took out of her own pocket to make the investment to bet on herself. Carissa, you've heard her story too. When we met her after the pandemic, like right after the pandemic, like 2021, she had 69 dancers in her program. And Carissa is not in like a bussin' part of town. She's in kind of a rural area in Connecticut. And I caught up with her last week. She's got like 500 dancers in her program. And her goal is 550 by June. And I'm confident she's going to do it. And it's not because she's like got great foot traffic or she's in an awesome area where there's 1 million kids. Like, no, she's in a tiny, tiny little town in Connecticut and she's invested in herself. She's bet on herself and she's crushing it. Alicia, well, we met her again shortly after the pandemic, probably 2022, I'm guessing. She had 115 dancers in her location and she was like, I need to make more. And so we went to work. She did the work. She bet on herself and she turned into the follow-up queen. People ended up in her pipeline. They were saying, hey, I'm interested in dance. And she just went to town, turning them into customers. Well, last I talked to her, she's got like 600 dancers and she's also taken on a second studio that is doing well. But that's not just for like big studios. Camille is another one. When we met her, 2 years ago, she had 30 dancers in her program. And now when I talked to her last week, she's got like 130. And by her own admission, she's like, I'm not really doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm kind of being lazy about it. And she's still 4x her business. And it's a legitimate studio that has actual payroll and is creating a good life for her. And there's still room for her to grow. And so all of these studio owners, it's not intelligence or something magic about their location or the style of dance or their name or their branding or their website. It's none of those things. It's just that they all showed up and were willing to bet on themselves. They invested in themselves before it felt safe, before it was like, oh, I've got this big cash cushion. They were like, no, I know me. And I know that if I have leads, I'll turn them into customers. What about you? Are you willing to invest on yourself? Bet on yourself. And so here's just what it takes to get there, because it's scary. I get it. We do it too. We're small business owners. We started pumping cash into marketing and hiring people before we really had the money to do so. Why? Because we bet on ourselves, and we knew that if we had studio owners that were willing to talk to us, we could help them win. And if we could help them win, then they would help us win. And that's what we learned. And that's what's happened. And that's why DMM is now the market leader in dance studio advertising. It's not because we're super smart or because we come from this world. We don't. We just showed up and bet on ourselves. And here we are. So investment mindset, what does it take? Well, I take a 6-month approach and encourage you to do so too. Marketing is a long-term investment. Most studios, and when I say most, I mean like 100%, I'm going to say, we'll go to 95. 95% of studios that show up with the right mindset win. They make their money back and then some. And the and then some is oftentimes in many multiples of what they're making today. But marketing takes time. It's a longer term investment. It's not a quick fix. Giving yourself 3 to 6 months minimum to allow things to breathe is going to be a major factor in your success. And so a lot of studio owners that I meet that don't succeed show up and they're like, hey, we turned my ads on Monday and it's Thursday and I only have 7 leads. And we're like, that's incredible for 4 days. Like, we're just warming up the algorithm. It's just starting. They're like, well, I need 1 million more. And it's just unrealistic. And so they quit. They're like, I'm out. I'm going to go to the other person, the guy who's going to promise me 90 leads in 30 days. Well, great, go to that guy. I will see you again in a year when that doesn't work. After you've wasted time, after you've lost customers, after other studios have opened up in your area. And I'm not saying this from ego or hubris. We've just seen it again and again and again. So when they fail, it's either because they don't give it enough time or they give it the time, but they just don't actually talk to their leads. And that happens surprisingly often. So just to recap, so what happens when you wait? Well, again, I'm not going to tell you how to run your business. I'm also not going to pressure you into taking a step that you're not ready to take, that you don't actively want to take. Now, you've heard me say on this podcast before that if you work with DMM, you actually have to like beg us to take you. Why? Because I want studios that actually want to be here. I'm not out here trying to sell every studio in the world. I know we're not for every studio in the world. I don't want every studio in the world. Go to my competitors for that. They want every studio in the world. I want studios that are going to win. I want studio owners that are going to show up and they're like, I am committed to my success, because nothing demoralizes me more than working with someone who gets lackluster results. You know, studios that we want are the ones that are like, I'm here to win. I'm here to crush it. Let's go. And they do. And so when I hear that, like, hey, we'll be back, totally fine. Bye. See ya. But I know that you're going to be back. You're going to be smaller. You're going to have less cash. You're going to be more strapped for time because teachers will have quit by then. So it doesn't make sense to keep them on payroll. So you got to let people go. And you're going to be in a place of much more desperation. And I will tell you objectively, nothing good comes when you're making decisions from a place of desperation. But here's the thing that you've got to realize. Your competitors aren't waiting around for you to take the next step. They're going to take the next step. Parents aren't waiting around for you to get your act together. They're looking for kids programming now. And if you're not in the market, if they don't know about you, they're going to the person who is. And I know it's the crap studio that has terrible technique and isn't good at what they do. I already know you think that, but it doesn't matter because they're better at getting the word out, which actually impacts how the business grows. So what's really at stake? Honestly, your freedom, your ability to get more kids in, to hire the staff, to build the life that you want, your peace of mind from not having to worry how you're going to pay bills, having to take out loans to keep the business open and the lights on, or go through the hassle of closing it down, and truthfully, your studio's future. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I've just seen it. Over the last 4 years, I have talked to so many studio owners and then followed up with them a year or two later after they said, I'll think about it, or I'll be back when I can afford it. And then they go away, and they'll follow up with them a couple years later and just say, hey, how are things going? And they say, I had to close my business. There weren't enough students. You got into this world because you love dance. You want to impact the next generation of dancers. You have an obligation to run a strong business, and you cannot do that without marketing. Have a great one.